Uh-oh. You all right?
Well, I'm okay. 1995, good year. That's when Heat came out. Okay, and we're recording. So, good morning, afternoon, and evening, folks. Welcome to Karate Without Belts. I'm John, joined with Jeremy.
Good morning, evening, and good night. So,
Good night, indeed.
yeah,
Um, how you been, Jeremy? Good.
not too bad. Just trying to trying to take care of business at work and trying to make sure the kiddos, get ample time and be able to do things like that. That's been my main priority. I was quite busy last week, so a lot of things going on. So that's okay. That's good.
Yeah, I know the feeling. Getting a bunch of different stuff done, and thankfully we're in the summer vacation time for my work, but it still doesn't mean things are any less busy. It just means I don't have to teach classes every day, all day. So,
Oh, that's cool.
yeah. Training wise, we just got done kind of almost about half an hour of doing stuff over over Skype, which is always good. For those of you who probably don't know, me and Jeremy actually been doing stuff over I would say over the internet lessons because that sounds a little
Okay, good.
like an old man. They did the internet, so they did the lessons over the internet.
Yeah.
Um,
No, I mean we've been doing live stream lessons for what, six years?
something like that, and it's not really a promotion of it, but it's just more
No.
like we both have a basis for martial arts, so it's easy to um, work on stuff and just communicate different things through that rather than just go to a class because me and Jeremy have been at more or less a distance for most of the time we've known each other. Same thing with Marty and others folks who've been on here, but thankfully with the magic of the internet, um, we've been able to kind of close that distance. I remember what is it back in 2012 and you, me, and buddy of mine, Steve, had just were like, let's do this. So we almost for a solid year were weekly on with you doing lessons and training and stuff like that, which
Yeah.
was pretty watershed moment for us at that time.
Yeah, I mean it was interesting. I mean, I'd kind of come up with the idea to do it, but nobody to really kind of test it out. And it came over um, as I call massive doses of sake and somebody said, "Oh, you can't do that." I'm like, "I think I can." And they're like, "I don't think you can." At the time, I was an engineer for a large telecommunications company. I'm like, "No, I'm thinking I can do this, and I'm going to go home and I'm going to go do it like right now." So it was just one of those deals. So it was interesting. It's provided. It's been good for me to be able to teach that way as well because um, I have to really hone in on my communication skills as opposed to just relying on, oh, watch this, bam. No, I got to really communicate it through. And so it's made me a better instructor doing it that way too. So,
Right, and it's more advisable in terms if you have other people with you rather than it's than one-on-one. Not saying that one-on-one can't work, but at some point you got to touch hands with someone. You got to have someone punch and kick and try to hold you down to the ground. Um,
right.
but it, but that kind of goes into what we're kind of talking about as a topic for today. Um, Mainly because I think this is how a lot of people meet. This is how a lot of things have been spread, at least from outside of where they're at. Because if we can roll it back. So, how do people initially learn martial arts or get introduced to any sort of martial art?
Yeah. I mean, it's either some seminar they go to, or they watch some movie, or they just stop in and into the local dojo and have no clue what's going on. And I would say I fall under category number 3 in that case. That's how I got involved. I watched a movie and I'm like, man, I'd love to be able to move like that, and I think that would be killer. And I went to the first person that was open, and it happened to be Robbie Morris, and I started training with him, and it it's taken off now. I said close to 30 years now. So I can't believe it's been that long. So there have been several times where I didn't think it was going to last that long. So it's pretty interesting. So
Yeah, I've got a similar background, I suppose. I think like most if not all people have that background where it's the place that's close to them, relative proximities and whatnot, that they get involved with what's ever going on there. Um, I what is it? When I was 13, a buddy of mine had given me it was like I remember it was like this very weirdly orange print, orange paper print, like that old orange construction paper. It was kind of very cheaply printed, but it's like one free month of karate lessons. And so I just went to this place for one free month of karate lessons. Just kept on doing it. Friend had quit, kept on doing it. And then I started seeing these things that the school was doing, and these things called seminars. I guess that kind of gets into our topic today of you buried the lead a little before me. So Jeremy, what's a seminar? What's a martial arts seminar? What is that supposed to be?
I mean, it depends. I'm going to go back to my default answer. It just depends.
It just depends.
It just depends. I'm the depends guy. No, I shouldn't say that. But anyway.
Well, look, you're not that old yet.
Not yet. I'm working on it. So no. I've seen different seminars ran different ways, and so it's a lot of it is a hodgepodge of, or I think one of the things that I like to characterize a seminar as is it's like a buffet. You're going to get a lot of different things. Now, what sticks? What's this? In my experience, most seminars I've been to, you got. I take it more towards a pizza buffet, and not like I don't love pizza buffets. I love pizza buffets, but if you go to a pizza buffet, the whoever's putting it on, they'll have their standards. They'll have their pepperoni, sausage, their combo, whatever. And then every once in a while they'll throw out something like, well, let's have a pineapple and jalapeno pizza, and maybe that's kind of like a seminar. They'll throw something out that's kind of either special, unique, or something like that. And therefore, then people can actually pick up something that's kind of like, that's pretty doggone cool, or, they're like, well, I really don't like that. And it's fine. They can go back to the pepperoni, the same old routine of whatever they're working on, or working on a little better. So, and that's the best way I kind of classify a seminar. It's a pizza buffet. So it's kind of, so.
Yeah, I mean, getting into the anatomy of it, it's kind of like, because you don't really see it with much else. In my life, I haven't really seen it with much else. At least in terms of how it is generally promoted or taken on. So the example being like we're at our respective karate schools, right?
Mm-hmm.
if we do tournaments, or if you do a tournament, or you guys do events, it is, just one more thing that you happen to do. I had gone to the karate school I started with had not done tournaments, or at least had not done tournaments for a long time. So when a seminar kind of came about, it was a big deal because generally it is someone who is not the head teacher or someone from outside the school, sometimes outside the system, is coming in to the school for X number of days or X number of, sessions or whatever, and teaching. Right?
Right.
I think that's a fair characterization.
Yeah, I'd say most. Yeah, I've seen a handful that aren't like that, but that's okay. But I mean, it's yeah. I mean, so somebody's going to run it some way somehow. Just depends on the person or guest of honor and different things like that. I mean, just depends. So.
Right. And sometimes you have bigger events where it's like you'll have a tournament mixed with the seminar. Sometimes it'll be a big 3-day event somewhere, right? And sometimes, people have changed the difference between what a seminar is and what a camp is. Because who doesn't love camp? Except anybody who's actually ever gone to a real summer camp, I suppose. But what I think's interesting about it is that though I've met a lot, like you and me met at a camp or seminar, a lot of people I've met who've been on this podcast have been through camps and seminars and stuff like that. We're not implicitly saying they're necessarily a bad thing or a wrong thing, but we just want to kind of point to this thing and kind of look at it and see kind of how it's become an almost integral part of martial arts culture and karate culture, at least for a lot of Americans, and in a lot of ways it's spread around. I think it's not as heavily promoted in Japan as I've seen it, but they've got plenty. There's plenty of seminars in Okinawa. That happen. So
it's interesting. One of the things that I've always found kind of interesting is I think people are in different stages each time they go to seminars. And I think that's one of the things that I've kind of honed in on over the years with different seminars that I've gone to. Like, I mean, there are several times like, oh, I've got to get this technique, or I got to work with this weapon, I got to do this, and you get into that mode of just almost urgency, like it's got to happen. Boom, But it's
got to have it.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I've looked back in the last handful of seminars I've gone to, well, the ones I've taught at, one of the things that I really tried to really get into for me was, okay, how quickly can I learn about this person? Because I'm getting thrown on average, between 10 and 14 people at a seminar to teach, and you got, either, 4, 6, 10 hour, up to 10 hours to try to teach them whatever they want to learn. Well, I started getting into what's their blocks mentally? What do they what do they want to get out of it? Why are they here? Why do you want to train with me? Things like that. And how quickly can I get into their knowledge base and see where they're at? And so how can I just personal nature, how can I actually get into them, and how do I take that outside of the seminar? Not so much just that. But that's kind of usually my training a lot of times at these seminars, especially the ones I'm teaching at. So
Right, because we both have that experience, and I think because you don't train with those people normally, right?
no,
A lot of the time, if you're going somewhere, maybe you'll be going with some people you're training with. If you're lucky, you'll have some people coming in to you, so you don't really have to leave somewhere unfamiliar. But uh, generally, you're teaching people who are coming from different places and all kind of coalescing in one place and trying to kind of figure out what's going on with them, because not everyone's got the same knowledge base. So it becomes difficult to teach, you know, it's like having 10 random students coming into to your class who you will won't have regular interaction with, and making sure they learn something by the end of 10 hours, 4 hours, 2 hours, whatever.
yeah. Now that does go back. I'm starting to remember the very first seminar I went to. Oh my, what a learning lesson that was. It was one of Mr. Yada's birthday seminars. Jeez, what, 28, 29 years ago. I mean, it's a long time ago. And I'll never forget, we get up there, and I mean, I'm way in the back. I mean, everybody else is lined up. I mean, I, I was almost to the back wall. That's about how far back I was. I mean, I was new. I didn't know squat, and that's okay. That's good. And he gets this guy up there and just starts knocking him out by, some of the stuff that he's done. I mean, everybody's seen that. And I'll never forget it because that was the most amazing thing I'd ever seen. I'm like, I've never seen anybody do anything like that. So the next class, I did one of the cardinal sins, and I went up to Robbie and I said, "Sir, I've got a question." He goes, "What's that?" And I'm like, "Does that stuff really work?" And he goes, "Do you want me to show you?" I'm like, "Yeah, I don't think that works." And he goes, "Okay, you sure?" And I remember Vicky and Dolores, the other two instructors, and they're like, "Jared, we don't think this is a good idea." I'm like, "No, I don't think this works." And I should have picked up on it, but I was too stupid back then to pick up on it. Yeah, Robbie had this grin like from ear to ear, just like, "Oh, this is this is like the best day ever." And sure enough, boom! I mean, he nails me, and I mean, I was out cold. And ever since then, I've been training in it. I mean, that was probably a good a good thing for me in some ways. So it was like I actually saw that, yeah, this works. So
And that speaks to the positives of that, and I think that's a really good thing. Do you think there was some I don't want to say intersection, but like you had Robbie, right? And Robbie
yeah,
was a student of Mr. Oyata,
right,
and you were Robbie's student.
right.
So do you think there was kind of a weird, you need to come see this guy, he's really good, go see this guy, go to the seminar, because the other side of the seminars is going to see, coming to the amazing thing, as it were,
Right.
um, pitching an event, which is not a bad thing, which is, it's a part of what happens when you have a martial arts school, when you have a martial arts association, when you have stuff like that. Um, you want to get people to go to an event to train with other people and get exposure to other things
Right.
than what you're just showing them. But what was that kind of feeling when you saw, oh, this is my teacher's teacher, but he's at a distance? Or, well, I guess you guys weren't too far away from him at that point.
Well, the first time I saw him, yeah, I really saw it as, yeah, he's over here. I deal with my instructor, and that's kind of how it was. But I think the good thing with Robbie was he one of the things he always did is like, okay, here's a seminar. If you want to go to it, go to it. If you don't. Period. End of discussion. He was never he never pushed any of that stuff. He never he was never really pushy like I know other instructors were, but he was not. So and that was the same way with Mike Miner when I trained with Mike Miner for a while. He was like, yeah, this is what's going on. You can go or not go. No big deal. Not a problem. So I think, yeah, it depends on the instructor. I think it depends on what the school's really concentrating on. Are they concentrating on seminars? Are they concentrating on, getting better as a group? I mean, what are you doing?
Right, and I mean that speaks to that. You just said it on the head there, because when schools do seminars like that, right? You were part of it as a style via an association,
right.
to try to become better, but also get together with other people, and there was other points to that.
Right.
Some other schools and other places are almost hooked on seminars,
Right.
where they have to go to the next seminar. They must go to the next. They must see the next guy. And at the inverse of that is there's people who take that and say, yes, come to our seminar. You will learn so much in 10 to 12 hours that you won't be able to contain it. You must come to the next seminar.
Right.
That somewhat subverts the idea that people who are running the school or training together, if they're actually running a I don't want to say legit operation, but people always want to try to get more knowledge, but it shows something of a lack of confidence in the knowledge that they have. Because we don't really have that. We like getting together with people. We like exchanging.
Right.
I've seen others who have had that kind of internal crisis of needing to go to seminars to get more knowledge, or needing to go because there's gaps and holes, and oh god, this guy's got this over here and this guy's got that over there. And
well, I mean, that's all great, but I mean, what do you? I go back to something that I said in one of the previous podcasts. What are you doing with that knowledge? Period. I mean, if you're going there to just videotape it and put that on a shelf, hey, yeah, I've got videotapes of 1,800 different techniques or 1,800 different katas or whatever.
right.
What was the point? And is it going to make yourself or the people you train with better or not? And that was one of the things that we talked about at a previous school, that there was some knowledge as far as certain areas of what we were doing that was a little lacking. It wasn't technique wise, but just, it's like, why don't we have some of this knowledge? And so we actually started making a plan, like, hey, this person go look at this person go look at this person go look at this, come back, we'll have a month to work on it all together and go from there. And
that's great if that's your plan, right?
Yeah, and I mean, and that was, I mean, I thought it was very well done, and it wasn't wasn't mean. It wasn't anything like that. It was just so everybody could really choose something that they really wanted to hone in on, and that was a lot of it. Like maybe somebody wanted to see something a little bit different with Bo or something like that. So it was. I think that's a good use of going to seminars and things like that. But the aforementioned, it's not so good. So, or at
Right,
least I
and
don't think so.
well, and it's not. We're not. Again, we're not saying
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
good.
no, no, no.
We're not saying it's a bad thing.
Well, I don't think you're maximizing your time at that seminar and what you could get out of it. That I shouldn't say good or bad. I don't think that someone's maximizing what they can get out of it if all they're doing is video recording everything. I just don't.
Well, and then the other part of that is, if you're like seminar chasing, right?
Yeah,
You're chasing after different techniques and stuff like that. Now, we live in an age where you can kind of see things easier, so people have to kind of spice up seminars to make them more appealing.
right.
Um, and then a lot of times the seminars are just vehicles to sell people on the next seminar or the association or
Some
uh,
product or something.
yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's not entirely the worst thing in the world.
No.
Uh, not entirely.
Yeah.
Um,
Not entirely. You're
I
right.
was at a I was at a seminar where they ended the seminar and half an hour early to literally advertise other seminars. And I felt a little strange, um, because it's ultimately getting away from the point of, at least in concept of those things, of a seminar, of a
Mm,
martial arts seminar, getting together and training,
right.
right? Like that's the core of it. That's the
Right.
core of what you're there to do. You're not there to do. You're there to make friends, and you can. And that's they're great events for that. But if the core of the seminar is all right, get all these people in a room, all right, sell like
Yeah.
ugh, that's the worst of it,
Yeah. I
and
mean,
that's when you know you're in the wrong place.
yeah. I mean, it's not much different than some timeshare salesman. It's kind of that always hits people kind of hard. It's like you're left with a bad taste in your mouth a lot of times, and yeah, that's I I try to stay away from stuff like that and go to seminars that I know that are going to be high quality for me, or I'd say what I'm looking for and what I'm wanting to enhance things on. So, but
And there's nothing wrong with just getting together and training with people,
right,
right?
oh yeah, absolutely,
Or getting to meet people, or being able to kind of go overcome boundaries by, not boundaries, but general limitations of, oh, there's other people who do what we do. Um, you karate too? You karate too? Okay, like that's a good thing, because that opens people up to the bigger world of people doing martial arts. Um, Again, these days, I don't think it's too limiting, as it was back in the time that you saw Mr. Oyata's birthday seminar.
right.
Um, but at the same time, it's something to keep in mind when it comes to that stuff. Positives I've seen from them have been like lasting friendships.
Oh yeah,
Um,
oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, lifelong training partners, things like that. Absolutely. That's definitely a huge benefit from them as well. Um, but yeah, it, I think it also gets into what do you want to get out of going to a seminar? And I think a lot, I mean, I've gone to some seminars where it's like, oh, I'll just pick up stuff, and then there are times when, no, I'm going in and I'm picking up this. Boom. This is what I want to work on. This is what I need to work on. Boom. And I'd have to say, usually whenever that happens, when I'm more focused, I tend to get a little bit more out of it. But I've also gone into some of these that are like, kind of, okay, well, whatever somebody's going to teach me, I'm cool with. And I might not have got a lot as far as quantity, but I might have had 2 or 3 really huge breakthroughs quality wise.
Right.
So it just depends. So,
And it can create tribalism, but it also tends to break up tribalism, if that makes sense.
yeah.
Where you'll get the folk who are like, well, my teacher does it this way. Which is always fun. But then there's people who will be like, oh, you do it this way? Well, this is how I do it. That's interesting. Oh, wow, that's cool. That's a different way of doing stuff. Which is really important.
Well, it's important up to a point. And that brings me back to, I wouldn't say a horror story, but it got me into a mode of almost drill instructor like on one of the people that came to a camp a long time ago. Yeah, I couldn't tell you how many years ago that was. But the person would not give up. Well, my instructor this, my instructor that, my instructor this, my instructor that. And
right.
and I'm responsible for teaching him what I know. And I got to a point where it was like, if you say it one more time, you need to leave. I'm tired of dealing with this. I can't get through to you. If you want to do it the way your instructor's always done it, go do that. That's fine. No problem. And he continued on, and I was getting ready to release him, and he goes, no, I really want to learn from you. And then I told him, then you need to shut up. And shut up and do as I tell you to do. And it's like, I have a little bit different knowledge. Not to say that what your instructor's doing bad. It wasn't. It's just, I'm going to give you a little bit of insight that's a little different. And I don't know if he really appreciated it or not, but I tried to give him a different point of view of what he was doing. And it was a guy. I'm sorry, but it just really tended to hone down, and he just really rooted down into what he it was almost like he wanted to show off what he knew as opposed to learn.
Right, and that's the kind of I don't want to say risk, but the kind of dice you roll when you have a bunch of different people from a bunch of different places in one room.
Right.
But it also goes into teachability.
Right.
If you want to learn, you have to be teachable. You have to. When I go to any of these things, I tend to be an idiot.
Well,
whether intentionally or not, I try to be like, oh, you're doing that. How are you doing that? I don't know. Like, try to be like, Columbo. Like,
right.
just be like, what are you doing? How are you doing it? Why are you doing it that? I don't. Okay, all right, I'll do it that way. No, you're doing it wrong. Oh, how am I doing it wrong? You have to do it. Okay. And so then, just Columbo your way into whatever they're doing, and then, you've kind of figured out the teacher.
Yeah. One of the other things, like if somebody's doing something a little different than what I'm teaching, I'll go in and ask them point blank, what are you thinking about when you're doing this? what's in your mind? How are you thinking through this? And I hate to say this, a lot of Americans really get into like, well, I'm just doing the movement. I'm just doing the movement. And that's all you're doing. Okay. Is there something else you want? Are you intentional about what you're thinking about, or is it not? So it just kind of goes back and forth. And there's always horror stories in seminars, along with real good stuff too. So
Wow, and I mean, a lot of good. What I think happens is with more or less the personal interactions, and that if just the teaching is more succinct. But then it goes into the question of like, some people try to cram. I remember, what is it? There was like a 6-hour seminar or something, and there was a list of teachers, and I was like, at the end of it, it was like, who got a chance to really talk? So I had to like step out for a minute, and I came back and it's like, we already changed teachers. I missed that guy's lesson. What happened?
yeah, um, I mean that brings up another thing. It kind of a subject on the side,
Right.
but I'm going to go off subject and then I'm going to come back around. It's interesting. The other thing I look at seminars as is it's kind of like my high school reunions.
That could be interesting.
You're like, oh geez,
I haven't had as many as you. So
huh?
I
Well,
haven't had as many as you.
what are you saying? I'm old? No, that's all right. I'm old. I'm getting old, but that's okay.
Also, I'm on part of a generation that's like tuned into social media, so like um, high school reunions are kind of less of like, oh, this is the people I don't have on that.
well, yeah, but anyway, I can go
So
on
you're
for
going
a
to your
whole
high
lot.
school reunion.
Yeah, we're going through a high school reunion, and you get into, hey, you go through the talk phase, and then you go through this phase, and then some people want to just talk, and that's cool, kind of talk, share things like that. Other people want to drink or play music or whatever else, and it's like it kind of distracts from having a reunion and actually getting together. And that's kind of going back to a seminar. You
Right.
kind of have those different functions and those different factions in seminars. You got people who really want to be there, have the camaraderie and work together to kind of come up with a great solution, or further whatever they're doing. Or you got people there is like, hey, let's socialize and let's really socialize, and or whatever, something that'll distract from what you're doing.
What inevitably happens on a Saturday night during a camp.
Well, we won't talk about the goat incident, but anyway, so it's kind of
Wait a minute. What goat incident are you referring to? Um, Now, some of the best times I remember from some of that stuff was just at that time, at the kind of socializing part, you end up invariably just training anyway. Like you're
yeah.
kind of in a kind of a weird like talking through technique kind of phase.
Well,
Um,
one of my favorites was, I think you were there. It was, I have no idea how much was consumed as far as sake, whiskey, whatever. I have no idea. But I think probably about three-quarters of us were probably five quarters drunk. But anyway, it was,
3/4,
uh,
5/4 drunk. All right.
yeah. um, all I remember was
So
Fred.
that's 2/7,
Yeah, something like that. I don't know.
1/8.
Yes, 6/9. I don't know. But anyway,
How
anyway.
many weapons were on the table?
Uh, no, all I remember was Fred. I think it was kind of his last gap, and it was probably about 2 o'clock in the morning, and he's like, "Let's kick everybody out of the dojo who's sleeping, and let's go have a Tuite seminar right now." You know, it's like, I mean, that was, I mean, I really thought he was going to kick all those people out. I really did. It was hilarious, but anyway.
Friend of ours who done a lot of things. Not in terms of bad things. He's done a lot of martial arts.
Yeah.
Law enforcement, whatever. When the guy says we're training, the guy says we're training. Nice guy. I really like him.
Oh, he's one of my favorite people to ever talk to. I mean, just one of the coolest people to ever work with. So I mean,
and
really,
straight up the real deal. Like when it comes to at least like he's got an overall, like not just like karate, like overall martial arts like background. He's like the real deal when it comes to just like he might have not gone out everywhere all around the world, but he definitely like knows how to deal with the situation. So there's someone you want to train with.
Yeah, I mean, he was. Yeah, and I mean, talk about some of the historical knowledge from that guy. He was something else. So I mean, love that guy to death. He's awesome. But
yeah, but like stuff like that is, I think, what people will tend to miss if they don't plug into a martial arts community in that way. Because seminars ultimately revolve around a community. I know they exist, but I've yet to go to any seminar where it's just one guy just happened to be found out the yellow pages, and a bunch of people just showed up who didn't know who each other were, or at least some people didn't know who some other people were, which is something I admittedly kind of miss to a degree of being a part of a kind of community. But seminars, I think, are that's the best part. I think that's the best part of them. Not so much the training. Get to that to a minute, but just building that community, that kind of group of people who will be like 1/18th drunk, and then it'll be 2 o'clock in the morning. Seminars at 8. Let's just get training now.
We're starting our own seminar right now. Here we go.
Here we go. 2 people and a dog.
Yeah, exactly. So no, it was. Yeah, I mean, those moments are definitely priceless. So it's fun. So.
Well, it actually comes to the training bit of seminars. I guess the best, I think a good question would be what's the best timing for whatever you need. And that can go into an it depends type of situation, but like for example, like if we're talking about one day,
Yeah.
how long should one day be? How much should be how much should be taught in one day? Because you can conceivably say one kata should only take up one day.
That's a good question. I think it really rolls on to whoever's actually teaching.
Right. And should it just be one teacher, or should there be several people, or?
Yes. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, it can be anything and everything. I go back to some instances where we would do one kata for 4 or 5 hours, and a lot of it is to get our mindset right. And sometimes even if you learn something new, you're learning something new, but are you present enough to really understand it?
Right.
And I think, that's a huge conflict within one person. I can't completely answer that. I can't. Each person's a little different, but I think that whoever's instructing has to have their finger on the pulse of who they're teaching. I mean, do you move forward with something? Do you step back and let them continue to work on the same thing over and 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 over, and
Right.
until they're actually submissive to be ready to learn the next thing. I remember one of the coolest things I ever learned at a seminar was noon table.
Ooh.
Yeah. Ooh. I
For
did
those who
not
don't
take.
know what noon table is, put a sai on top of a bow. There's
Yeah,
your noon table.
yeah. And I wanted to learn that weapon for over 10 years, and I was getting to work with um, Sakin Taylor, and I thought, wow, this is like, it was almost like what was it, like a South Park moment or a Beavis and Butthead moment. I have seen the mountain and it is good, I mean, but yeah, I mean, it was kind of that, but I mean, I was in awe, and I look back on that, and that first seminar that I started working on that, I think I picked up the first 8 to 10 moves, and that was it. I and guess what? After that seminar, I worked on those first 8 to 10 moves for 6 months until I saw Mr. Taylor again. And guess what? Boom, got right back on it. Here we go. Boom. And it started coming a little bit quicker to me, but I was present to how the weapon was working, how I can make it work, and things like that. And so I guess the thing of it is what is your motivation to make whatever work
Mm.
in a seminar setting? Is it, hey, I'm here, yeah, all right, I'm just gonna videotape it. And don't get me wrong, videotaping's not a bad thing, but if you're videotaping and not experiencing anything, that's great, but how are you going to reproduce it at all?
Right. And then I think that goes into a big part of what you're saying, where it was like you only had the first 10 moves of a kata,
Yeah,
but you knew those moves better than maybe somebody who had just gone through the whole kata the whole day.
yeah,
And I think that's important because that's in you. You're not going to lose it. You've
right,
got it.
yeah,
So I think that also speaks to a large volume of how can you conduct a seminar well. Well, you got to get everyone on the same page.
yeah,
Not every and not and not and get everyone on the floor participating, doing the same things. Now I think it we're talking about like a day seminar, right? You get
right,
everybody on the floor doing the same thing. We only got a day to do it, so get everybody. Don't have time for variation and whatnot. Think like at in a camp setting though, you've got maybe a little more time to breathe, but at the same time, you can approach it with more of a model of you've you're taking these 3 days to be somewhere potentially. You've spent the money, you're taking the time off. You got a babysitter for the kids. The dog is tied up to a tree for 3 days. Hopefully, then it's not gonna die. Whatever, right?
yeah,
Don't tie your dogs up outside. That's cruel. Kennel them, or find a baby, or find a dog sitter. Um, disclaimer. But maybe you can just treat those 3 days like 3 very intense days, because we've seen it where it's just been kind of a dawdling session
hmm, yes,
where what's going on? I don't know. What are we doing? I don't know. So having like 3 days of intensely learning something and having it well planned out in advance, um,
I, I,
along with
I,
rolling with the punches.
well, I think you can have it well planned out, but I think also I think a really good seminar also allows a little bit of free time in between some of these things, in between like sessions and things like that.
Right.
So I think those are the best seminars, because if you're going back to back to back to back, from one to another to another to another, by the time you're done, you're mush. Your brain's mush, your body's mush. You're not going to be able to remember half of it. And I hate to say it, you've almost wasted your money.
Possibly.
Not quite, but you might have picked up something, but it's not going to be as impactful as if you go to a session. And I'm seeing different seminars where you got 20, 30 people there teaching. There's no way you're going to pick up 20 or 30 people's expertise. So you're going to have to pick and choose. And I think some of these have to have time afterwards to really digest, really work with the people who you're working with in that session, to really kind of, hey, bounce ideas off, or really, really try to dig in to understand it. I mean,
And ask questions.
Yeah, you can write it down, you can do whatever else, but if you don't experience it, you're not. It's a loss, or at least in my experience, that's what I've seen. Not just from me, but from people that I've taught and things like that.
Well, and then it goes into are we just presenting the master type seminar, or are we trying to get people in here to really teach us something? Because you have those kind of different type of seminars, right?
Right.
If you're like, and then there's people who are trying to do like the showboat seminars.
Mm-hmm.
And to people listening, if you're looking for someone to train with, I think it kind of doesn't really matter what they're necessarily trying to teach, but as long as you can actually learn from them and and get out of there what you're trying to get out of there. Get more. I don't want to say it that way, but get out of the seminar the goal that you have in mind. If the goal that you have in mind is just socializing, like you're saying, yeah, it's fine. But if you're really trying to, if you came there to learn something and all they're doing is saying, buy our DVDs,
Yeah.
that's another thing entirely.
Yeah, that's a whole separate subject, but that's okay. It's all good. But yeah, it depends on what you're really trying to get out of it, and I think people need to. I think the best way to go about it, I think people need to target what they're going to try and get out of it, and then maybe have kind of a side thing like, maybe I'll try to get this, or maybe I'll try to get that, or or try to work in a connection with somebody over on the East Coast, or this, or over wherever. So I think to have a focus in on what you're trying to get, and then also have kind of a side focus of not so formal, but just try to look at something else, or at least be open to something else. I think that usually works pretty well.
Right, and there's also like short term and long term, right? So
Right.
you have like the short term goal of like I want to learn X, and then long term of let's make connections with Y, Z, and Z.
Right. And then you got, and then some of the other ones that I've seen are like, whenever you get into a seminar, and going back to the pizza buffet analogy, you go and just take everything, and you don't really taste anything. And I think I've seen people come to seminars like, well, I'm going to go learn this, and this. And there is no way you're going to learn that, 6 or 7 different things in one weekend. There's just no way. I've never seen anybody be able to do it, but
Not well.
not well, no.
Well, and there needs some sort of long goal in what you have in mind,
Right.
right? Can you just be consistent with what you got, or are you gonna just pick up that one thing and then let it go after 2 months?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So I would always want to encourage people, if you go to a seminar, you go out to cross train, you go out to try to, figure out something new to do. You know, hone into what you feels right, but make a decent plan and try to be an open, teachable person. Don't worry about what other people have taught you, and just go there and kind of be the blank slate. Be
Yeah.
Columbo.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. With some focus.
With some focus, right? Stop making mention to your wife. Go home, see her. Enough of that pop culture reference. Anything else we got left to say about this topic?
I think this is pretty good.
Yeah.
I think we covered, as a participant and also as an instructor in a seminar. It's you got two different hats you're wearing. So
Yeah, and well, as an organizer, which I think neither of us have really ever had a strong hand in, but we've had strong grumbles about in some cases.
yeah, yeah. No, and that's all good. That's all good.
Well, I'm putting on the hat of an event organizer is a thankless job because
Yeah.
no one's ever happy.
No, you're right. You're right. Right on that. So.
And so, I mean, to those who are organizing events, do your best. We don't hate you if something goes wrong.
No.
Except if you slighted us in the past, then be prepared because we will come when you least expect it. No, we're not. No, we're not. Thank God we can edit this out, right?
Yeah, exactly. So.
Cool. So, what are you up to for the rest of for this coming week?
I'm going back and working on Psy some more. Probably going through. Probably gonna go through Nunchaku because I was thinking about it the other day, and it's like, no, I'm starting to forget certain things about that. I need to go back through, at least go back through it. But
that was your first weapon, right?
Yes, actually, it was. But yeah, I'm starting to forget certain things that I was taught with it, and I'm like, I need to spend a little bit of time on that and go back and stuff I really don't want to forget. So that's what I'm up to next week or so.
Right on. I'm be working on that stuff we worked on earlier, and just doing more running. So I'm prepping up for. There's a half marathon in February, and there's a full marathon in March. That sounds like it's far away, but
No,
especially when you're trying to prepare for that stuff, it's not.
Yeah, you need what, a good 6-9 months usually, typically.
Yeah, and at some point I want to put out something about running and martial arts and how those two things, kind of how martial arts needs to have that physical aspect, and it's a good thing to kind of go outside and do just running or swimming or biking or, dare I say, profane these words, do yoga.
Oh yeah, speaking of swimming, yeah, my kids have challenged me tomorrow to race them at swimming at the local pool. I'm like, man, do you understand how sore I am? You guys are gonna beat me, but that's okay. That's okay. Good for them. So,
Well, at least they'll feel good about that, right?
well, I'm not gonna let them win, but they probably will win. So.
Well, that'll work then. Any closing words?
Just good night and have a great tomorrow.
Yeah, and remember, everybody, keep training.